Hi, today on Nat Chats I want to talk about strata title. As the amount of subdivisions and apartment buildings increase in WA, so does the number of properties that are strata titled. In fact, in coming years, we'll find that strata title properties overtake green title properties as the predominant type of properties sold here in WA. Now, strata title applies when essentially land has been subdivided and is apportioned amongst a number of lot owners, and that can be anywhere from 2 to several hundred lot owners. The land apportioned can be both below ground and up in the air as well, if you think about, for example, an apartment building. How that land is apportioned is shown on what's called a strata plan, and there are two common forms of residential strata plans. There's what we call a built strata or a strata scheme plan, and then the second form is what we call survey strata or a survey strata plan. Now, the main difference between built strata or a strata scheme and a survey strata scheme is whether or not the buildings are shown on the land. So in a built strata scheme, you'll actually show the buildings drawn on the land and the individual lots, whereas with a survey strata plan, you'll essentially see the blocks. Even though there might be buildings on that land, you won't see those actually drawn on the strata plan. Now, in all strata schemes, be they a built strata scheme or a survey strata scheme, you may also have common property. In the older forms of strata, you'll just essentially see areas that aren't allocated to a specific lot. They are in fact common property, whereas in newer strata plans, those areas of common property will actually be marked as CP on the plan. Now, where there is common property, that common property is jointly owned by all of the people within that strata scheme, and it is apportioned on the basis of unit entitlements. So unit entitlements and what, proportion each person in that strata scheme owns is an important concept to understand too. Now, the best way to understand strata is to download Landgate's Guide to Strata Titles. It is fantastic reading, and I think compulsory reading for anybody looking to purchase a strata property, or if you're in a strata group, to understand how they're supposed to run. It covers all the common questions, things like, how insurance is managed, whether or not you're supposed to have meetings and levies, what happens if people want to make changes to the external facade, all of those kind of common things, as well as how disputes get resolved with strata. It's a fantastic guide. It's written in very simple language, and I would really encourage you to download a copy of that off the Landgate website and give it a read. Now, there's a lot of misconceptions about how stratas work, but in a nutshell, you've got the same issues in a strata property as you would have if you're owning your own home on a green title lot. You've still got property maintenance items to contend with, you've still got to go through approval processes if you want to make changes, and you've got neighbours and building insurance. There's not a lot of difference, except with strata properties, there are things like standard bylaws, and they can be special bylaws for schemes as well, which govern the way that things are done and how a strata is managed. Now, that's one of the common misconceptions about strata, because in fact with small strata schemes, which we call, say, a two strata scheme where there's just two lots, so it's a very basic subdivision, and in some cases even with 3 and 5 strata scheme lots, particularly with 1 or 2, there's no actual requirement for strata owners to have annual general meetings. There's no requirement for them to set up strata accounts, and there's no requirement for special levies. It might be in a 2 or even up to a 5 scheme that the only thing that the lot owners arrange together is their insurance for their buildings and their common property. So in fact, some strata schemes can be quite simple and straightforward to run. And when you're purchasing a strata property, you should always be asking the selling agent how that strata is run. So just finally, if you're looking to purchase a strata property, here are a couple of tips. The first thing is get a copy of the strata plan before you make an offer. There's also some standard documents that an agent is supposed to give you. One's called a Form 28, there's another called a Form 29, which is a guide to buying and selling a strata title property, and there should be standard strata bylaws that you're given as well. And if any of those standard strata bylaws are changed, or there's some specific bylaws that apply to that property, they'll be noted on the strata plan, and the selling agent needs to give you a copy of all of those as well. So make sure you've got all the relevant strata documentation and you've had a read through it. The other thing is check to see if the strata has annual general meetings. If they do, get a copy of the last AGM minutes so that you can have a look through and see if there are any ongoing or current issues in relation to that strata group. And lastly, a lot of buyers think low strata fees are good. They can be, but in some cases they're not as well. I think the best run stratas, if it's a strata that needs to have fees, that is, are those that also have a reserve levy as well. That way you know that the group already has some money set aside for maintenance, ongoing maintenance issues. If they don't, it means that you're going to be whacked special levies every time something needs to be fixed. So look, really in a nutshot, don't be afraid of strata. Strata is going to become the most common form of property that is sold in Western Australia. It's just a case of getting across what it means, reading the guides, understanding your rights and responsibilities, and going in eyes wide open when you're purchasing so that you're aware of everything that's happening in the strata group. And as always, if you've got any questions, please give me a call, 0405 812 273. That said, I'm by no means a strata expert, but I certainly will probably be able to refer you on to someone that is. Have a great day.